is going on, guys? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. Hey, I'm pretty sure that we're all wondering where exactly have the Lake Fork fish gone after all the craziness. And today I got the crew that can give you all the answers. We got more gadgets in here than I've ever seen in my life. We're fixing to go on a tracking survey on Lake Fork. Well, guys, I'm out today with Jake Norman and Quentin from Texas Parks and Wildlife, and we're doing a fish tracking survey. This is something you guys started way back in June. We actually had a seminar where you came and told us about it. I did an interview with you at y'all's facility in Athens about it. So we've had some stuff on this tracking survey on the channel in the past, but today's my first chance to get out on the water with you. We've actually been trying to do this for a minute, but scheduling is tough, you know, and the weather's not helped us in some instances. But today we finally got to get out and do this tracking survey. Now, everybody knows what's been going on in Texas. The whole world knows what's been going on in Texas weather-wise. We are literally out here, we're going to track fish today after the craziest cold front that anybody's ever seen.
Yes, it's been something for sure. It's going to be interesting to see how far these fish have really moved, if they've moved. There's been several times through last summer, last fall, where I was really saying, all right, here's finally we're going to see big movements, big weather changes, and truthfully our fish haven't moved a lot yet.
Right.
But we haven't had anything this extreme, you know, like you mentioned, really ever, but especially during this study, we really haven't. So this may be the first time we see a few different behaviors, different reactions, different movements from these fish that we haven't seen just yet.
Well, if they ever are going to move,
this is going to be
by golly, they ought to after this.
For sure,
yeah.
for sure.
So for those that may have not seen our previous videos, may not have a clue what we're talking about, maybe seeing this for the first time, tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing. What are we doing here with this tracking survey?
Yeah, certainly. So the overall picture, you know, this all stemmed from kind of just concerns from anglers and, you know, myself fishing a lot. People's kind of wondering what's going on with some of these big year classes we had after the lake finally returned to full pool.
Right.
Had that new lake effect everyone was excited about. We were seeing these really strong year classes of fish from 10, 12, 14 inches long, but they weren't seeing that translate into fish inside the slot where they weren't catching more 16 inch above inch.
As those year classes went on, they should have been bigger and we weren't seeing as many of those fish as they got older.
Exactly. So started thinking about it and it's like, well, you know, maybe we can actually answer that question. We've luckily had some good funding available. Let's do a telemetry study, actually track these fish over the course of a year, looking at fish specifically around that 14 to 16 inch. You know, we've got some 18 inches and a few larger fish in this study, and just follow their movements over the course of a year or two and see if maybe, you know, those fish are there. They just have changed their patterns, changed their habitats, learned to avoid anglers altogether. And let's look at that in every way we can and see if we can answer what's going on. Because
Lake Fork is a pretty unique lake, and you guys are also doing this. Todd Driscoll's doing it on Rayburn and Toledo. Yep. And all three of those lakes are probably the three most pressured lakes in the state of Texas. I think that's fair to say. And specifically Fork, because of how much smaller it is compared to those lakes, really, you know, per fish, per acre, we get as many boats out here fishing for bass as you do anywhere on earth.
Absolutely.
And no doubt about it, maybe more, you know, maybe the most, arguably. And so that's really what this thing is geared around is, how is the life cycle of a Lake Fork bass being affected by
the sheer number of anglers,
everything that the lake goes through?
Yep, absolutely. So, yeah, that's what we've been doing now, like you said, since the end of May going into June, going into almost March here. Should start seeing some normal movement patterns regardless as the spawn kicks in, but we really have that cool situation today. Most of this lake just thawed out. I mean, we had ice.
There's ice right there.
Over here. Exactly. So
there is ice on the bank right there.
This is a very unique time. I'm glad we timed it right to get out here today and see, track these fish and see if they've moved their locations or see if maybe their behaviors today are different.
Yeah, and part of this survey is you guys actually, when you mark a fish and it stays put, you try to catch them.
Yeah.
And you're very limited. You only use, because it's a controlled thing, a scientific experiment thing, so you only use a 10-inch Berkeley power worm, black and blue. Yep. Use the same size weight, unpegged. You've been using it all year long. That's the only bait you throw at these fish when you mark them. We'll just go ahead and say water temps in the 40s today, after the biggest cold front. 10-inch worm's probably not the best option.
I wouldn't normally have it tied on.
No.
Today, you know, science dictates this one. We're just going to go with it.
Because you want that control for the results of the experiment, right? So, yeah, it's going to be a challenge for you to catch the ones that we see today, I'm sure. And I'm sure it usually is anytime you limit yourself to one bait, it's going to make it more challenging to catch fish in different situations. So
certainly.
And so, one thing I'd like you to touch on is, you've seen these fish, like you said, a lot of them haven't moved a whole lot.
Certainly.
All year.
A lot of these fish have honestly probably stayed within 100 yards or so the entire time from where we collected them, where we released them. They haven't moved a lot. We've had a handful of outliers that have just gone every which direction. And, you know, we've got those two fish we talked about that are way outside of our study site, outside of Birch Creek now, a few miles each direction. But 10 or 11 of these fish out of the original ones we started with, they're staying put. Yeah. Some of them even as tight as within a stump or two every single time. Just doesn't seem to matter what water water temps, weather conditions.
It's wild.
Yeah, certainly.
It's just you got a little house.
Yeah.
And we're going to see some of that today. We're going to see today, because this is by far the most extreme weather most extreme circumstances that you guys have had since you've started the study. So it will be really interesting to see if there is movement on some fish that haven't been moving today. I'm excited to look at that. And it's also going to be exciting to see going forward in your next few surveys when we get into spawn.
Big time.
How much do these fish move around for spawn versus, these fish that are hanging out on the main lake or the bigger parts of Birch Creek, because that's where this study is taking place. How far back in the pockets do they move? Do they go at all? Do they just hit the bank, go spawn, and come? What do they do?
Yep.
We're going to find that out this year.
Certainly, how far they're moving and also when they're moving. We'll get to see these
Yes.
fish pulling up at the very beginning of what we would call our spawning season.
How long do they stay in there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
All of those things, we're going to get a good look at all of that.
It's going to be a and y'all are going to keep doing this study through.
The fish we have out right now, the battery life on those should be 1.5 to 2 years if possible. So
wow.
2 years at best, and we're also hoping to get another 8 to 10 transmitters out in fish probably this May. We talked about before, we want to get a few true deep fish that come out of deep water that may have more of a propensity to move around to begin with and be out in deep water, and try and track some of those and see if we see anything different.
And are we going to try to target some bigger ones? Because right now the biggest fish in the study is like 21, 22 inches?
21.5 inches, and
Okay.
that's most of them are, the bulk of them are 16 to 18
Right.
inches. So on this I think I'm going to target 18 inches and above, and really want to get a few more 20 plus inch fish in this,
Yeah,
this
get
part of
some towards the top end of the slot type
Yep,
fish. That would be
certainly.
really interesting. That would be interesting for me personally. Now, I do feel the need to point out, I did catch one of the biggest fish in the program.
You sure did.
Before I even met you,
Yep.
all that. Actually, right over there.
I was going to say, we're looking at where you caught it.
Right over there. I caught one of the biggest. I caught what was it, 19.5 inches?
I believe around that,
Yeah,
yeah.
something like
It was a good, healthy fish.
It was a good one. It was
Yeah.
one of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
Just saying, folks.
Hey, it helped us out. Yeah, that was cool to see that one.
It
And
really
you had
did.
it on video from what I recall. That was really
It
cool.
was on a YouTube video, sure was, on this channel. And that was really cool, too, because you actually, there's something wrong with the transmitter in that
Yeah,
fish.
that's the one transmitter this entire study, both between all of my tags and all of Todd's tags at
Yeah.
Toledo. This one seemingly failed on us. We
And it's the
check
only one.
the only one. So we check them all right before we put them in the fish. Turn the transmitter on, make sure it's beeping, put it in, stitch it up, let the fish go. It was working then, and since then, for whatever reason, it quit working quickly, and we would have never known where that fish went if you hadn't caught it.
So the only tracking information was that I caught it right on that point. Now you shocked it and tagged it
Just
on a
right.
point across the creek. So you do have some. You tagged it in
That was the end of May for that.
May, shocked it, tagged it in May. I caught it in September, and from May to September it had moved a couple hundred yards.
At best, certainly.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable to say that's another one that's been a homebody. That's the only point we have on that fish. But
Judging
seeing
on
that,
what you've seen in the study so far, that one is more than likely another one of those fish that's got a little area he's
yep,
hanging
he's
in.
probably over there right now.
Well, we're going to get into some cool stuff today, guys. I apologize. I'm having some technical difficulties with my microphones today. They're not working. And so we're having to go with native audio on the GoPro. And when we're on the main lake, these fish are on the main lake, you're going to experience some tough audio today. I apologize up front for that. We're going to do the best we can. But we've got some really interesting stuff that we're about to start uncovering out here on the water. So y'all check this out.
That's great. So we've just pulled out here. I mean, we just turned on the tracking device, and Jake's already noticing that there's some fish moving.
Quite a
Talk
bit.
to us a little bit about what we're seeing.
Yeah, this last fish we just picked up, we're hearing pretty close. 3 weeks ago, was literally smack dab in the very back of Birch, up against the bushes, 2 feet of water, and it's within, I'm going to say, a quarter mile of us right here.
And we're
now.
at the mouth. This is the main lake.
Yeah.
The main lake's right here.
So it's definitely moved, and we picked up another one that's been down by the bridge consistently,
Yeah.
and it's out, sounding like right over here right now. We're going to look for it here
Okay.
shortly.
Okay,
So
cool.
definitely has had some pull way out right now.
Yeah, just so everybody knows where we are. And for the record, I sincerely apologize for the wind. For whatever reason, my microphones are just not working today. So I apologize for the wind noise. But we're right out here at the mouth of Birch. And in fact, if you look right behind me, if you guys remember the Elite Series event where Brandon Cobb won, he caught a lot of big fish right here off this island, the points on this island. And so there's fish that have been in the back of Birch Creek, halfway back in Birch Creek. And the first couple fish that we've pinged today have already moved from way in the creek and pulled way out. So what you guys are seeing, he's fanning this antenna around and trying to see where the signal's the strongest. Is that right, Jay?
Yeah, and it'll you can tell pretty quick as you get out of the signal. You can kind of just picture a cone, and the strongest ping you're going to hear is right in the center of the cone. And you'll start the further you get away, the ping goes away, and you just you can just really narrow it down. The gain knob on the receiver box, you can just keep dialing it back. So as you get closer, you turn the gain down lower, and eventually you can get to where you can narrow it down to which tree he's on, essentially. we'll see what this one does. This fish has been what I can call a kind of a perennial fleer.
He runs from the boat?
Most, except some of the coldest temps we had when the water was down. One of these stumps up here, it's under the water now. We were literally bouncing off the stump with our boat and he wouldn't move. And I was starting to think he was dead. And finally, the trip after, with one of my flips with the worm, I got him to move. The boat didn't even move him still, but that's the only time he wouldn't flee. All summer long, he was along this timber here, and every time we'd get pretty close and he'd start running down the bank.
That's an interesting observation that when the water temps were warmer, he would run like crazy, but when they got colder, he just locked up.
He didn't want to move.
That's interesting. He's on that. So we're literally. Tell me your name, brother. Quentin. So Quentin's over here running the antenna, and there's a stump right there in front of us. And Quentin's basically got it narrowed in to think, okay, that fish is on that stump, and he's still there. He's not moved yet.
Not yet.
Yeah. This wind's gonna make boat control even more of a fun challenge.
Oh, he's right there. He's like right there. I don't know what we're doing with this pinging thing, but I can tell that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's pretty easy. Where that fish is at.
That was really cool. So you say he's been here since the fall, that fish right there?
Yeah, I forget the exact month. November for sure, I think.
Yeah, maybe in October.
Yeah,
And that stump probably 75% of the time. I
Yeah.
feel like.
On that stump, 75% of the time.
On that same stump, yep.
You know this is like cheat code for fishing guys
No,
right here.
I
Right? Y'all realize I'm cheating. Like when I take you out on a trip and I'm like, hey, throw that stump right there and catch one about 16 inches. I might have cheated, I'm just saying.
I've thrown that stump a lot. He hasn't bit yet.
Yeah, I won't be quiet. And I'm gonna throw more than one. You only throw one worm.
Yeah, and it's a 10-inch worm. I mean,
They-
I've got my limitations.
They throw one bait for the controlled aspect of the scientific experiment. We're gonna go up there and bank a crankbait off it and throw a drop shot at him or whatever. So right now this fish is pretty much staying on this one stump right here. And we're in probably about 4 foot of water where that stump is. And what's really cool is we were talking about shell beds and all that. If the white will show up on the bank, that white stuff on the bank is shell. And one of the most known shell beds is right here beside us. And this fish is living his life right here beside the shell bed in these stumps. And I would almost bet you, from my experience, that fish hangs out around those stumps all year long. And he goes over that shell bed and eats, and then comes back and lives on that stump. And that's just how he lives his life. Now what'll be really cool to see is when Jake and them come back out here in March and April, how far does that fish move to spawn, or does he move to spawn? That'll be interesting to see.
We collected him on this point when we shocked him.
You shocked him on this point right here?
Yeah, right on the tip of it where you'd expect him to see.
Where he'd be up there like in a feeding position on the point?
That's where we collected him.
Yeah.
Which we've had a few. This is one of the few before that has done that.
That's interesting. So the boat, we literally idled the boat almost on top of this fish and he never moved. But as soon as Jake fished the worm in there, the fish has now moved. All right, Jake, let's talk about what we're seeing on this one right here, because this is our next fish that we've located. And we kind of started getting a good signal on him right over there, but we weren't really sure because we couldn't get right on top of him. But now we've made our way over here and we're not sure. We were thinking he might be moving on you.
Yeah, this fish, it's definitely not staying put. This is kind of one of those in-between fish we start mark. I'm not going to say this fish is 100% moving because of our boat, because you can get a feel for that when you're coming up on a fish. If you know he's there and you get up on him and he moves, I mean, clearly he's fleeing from the boat.
Yeah.
This one, most likely, I've seen a little bit of bait out there. It's a fair bet that this fish has maybe just been suspended out here, might be roaming around right now. We're going to try a little bit more to see if we can get a better beat on him and get more conclusive. That way we can say for sure if he's moving because of us or if he is just roaming around. Quentin's starting to look kind of confident he's moving. Without a doubt, because we've heard him probably 100 yards that way, pretty strong, where he should have been right in front of us, and we just keep following and following and following. So this is one of those random fish that likes to make things difficult on us, but he's definitely moving around.
Yeah. So that's interesting. This fish right, Jake, how big is this fish right here?
Let's go back and double check. He's 15 and a half inches, just below the slot.
Tournament guys,
Yeah.
just saying, if you want to know where to catch a 15 and a half incher, I got the spot. No. So actually it's really interesting because we talked about it, you know, in the earlier part of the video where we've had this drastic cold front. Obviously we're below freezing for 5 days, 6 days, whatever it was. Just crazy stuff that we don't ever see here. And this fish has been about, what do you say, about a third of the way into this creek?
Yeah, about that.
Been about a third of the way into this creek, kind of on a main lake-ish type of point. This is Birch Creek here. It's a big point on a big wide open part of water with some timber and stuff. And he's been hanging there consistently since last fall.
Yeah, last November, every bit at the beginning of November.
So ever since November, he's been there every time they come out here. And now after this cold front, he's pulled out of the creek to the main lake. I mean, we're behind this island right here at the mouth of Birch, but I mean, the main lake is right over that island. I mean, we're basically on the edge of the main lake right here. So that fish moved a pretty good ways. That's, I don't know, how far you think that is?
Mile and a half, maybe. It's every bit of a mile, I'm gonna guess.
At least a mile. That fish just up and moved a mile when he hadn't moved in months. So it looks like this weather, one thing we can determine already real quick from the first couple of fish is the weather has definitely repositioned some fish and moved them. All right, so we're on a fish now that's been living more offshore.
Yeah, this is one of our few fish that we've been pretty much consistently finding in 18 plus feet of water. Really through the winter, it's been out closer to 30 foot most of the time, and still a relatively small home range, but definitely moving around more, definitely following shad schools, and 100% offshore.
And right now we're having a hard time getting an exact ping on him. And you said because of that, you've actually had a hard time all year pinging this fish because he lives more in deeper water.
Yeah, the deeper it's gotten, especially since he's been in this 30 foot plus water, he's it's really hard to get that direct ping because you start to lose signal strength. And you add that wind to it right now, it really just starts bouncing everything around.
Yeah.
You can tell Quentin up there is about to go crazy trying to find this fish.
He is.
You know, I have no doubt we're within a 20-yard circle of where it's at right now. But to actually see this exact fish in this weather, and this wind, and the depth, it's going to be a problem. There's a lot of good fish down here right now. He's definitely not alone. Wouldn't say he's with a school or anything, but there's definitely some other fish out here with him.
All right, so we're on the next one now, Jake. And you say this fish has been, he was in the same spot most of the year, then he actually had a fall movement.
Yeah, he showed a little bit of a change up in the fall. Actually left Birch quite often. We found him in a few pockets down on the main lake. Classic spot that was choked full of shad all fall, and no real cover he was holding on down there, just following shad schools.
Yeah.
And into December or so, as it started to get colder, he started moving back, and he's been back on this point pretty much ever since. And seemingly that's where he's gonna be sitting up here. The last 3 trips he's been on the same tree like some of our other guys.
Interesting.
Yep.
Really seems like a lot of these fish do have a bedroom and a kitchen.
Yeah, very, very much so. Some more than others, but all of them pretty much all have some type of a bedroom and a kitchen, or it's all one-stop shop for a few of them seemingly, but definitely some noticeable patterns, fish to fish. That might be him again right there.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, he's been on. I'm guessing that could be him right there, even right above that tree. I reckon there's a tree that's been laying kind of horizontal on the water column that I've seen him on every time. So once again, I pull it up, and it's pretty obvious to.
My man saw this crooked tree on the live scope right here, and he said, "Oh, that's a tree he's been on in the past."
He might have left it now, but he was there at the very beginning. So on top of it.
He knows exactly what tree this fish has been sitting on by the shape of the tree. He's been looking at them so much.
Yeah, this one's been one of the fun ones.
If there was like a fishing tournament amongst if there was a tournament of being like a wildlife fishery biologist, I think you'd be what they call dialed in.
I appreciate that.
I can tell by the shape of the tree. That's the tree right there. So I'm a real big fan of this fish that we found because we're out of the wind for a minute. So you guys can actually hear us really well. So I wanted to actually get Mr. Quentin here to turn this thing on. And there's a fish. Now, Jake, you said this fish has just been on this dock.
Yeah, he's been on this dock specifically for a couple of months now. You know, he's been in this general area. He's been a dock fish this whole study, but
he's been on a dock every time.
Every single time since June.
But at this dock, he's been here for how long? On this one dock?
So probably Thanksgiving, if not before.
And not even just this one dock, but he's been in like the same spot.
On this dock.
You said there's a stick up or something underneath this dock, and he pretty much relates to that or stays around that?
Yeah, the water's up enough now. I guess we can't see it, but it's right up here under this little where the catwalk meets the rest of the dock. Yeah, he's been chilling there for a few months.
Quentin, fire that thing up. Let's see what it sounds like when you're on it and when you're not on it. All right, put it like back this way. Here, there you go. That was good. It got real fast. And then you get on him. And so that's how they zero in on these fish. I wanted you guys to hear that one time when we got some good audio because the wind's not blowing back here. But that's how they zero in on these fish. The further away from them they get, then the fainter the beep gets. And then when they point right at him, they get closer to him. He gets stronger and stronger. So pretty interesting technology.
Right on his dang head.
So my man's got him pinpointed, and Jake's just casting right where the ping is coming from.
Frustrating part of this.
Who needs live scope, folks? Just hire you a guy like Quentin. He can run around with this little beeper thing, and he'll beep them up for you. Well, Jake, I can't thank you enough for letting me come along on this deal. Really interesting stuff out there, man. We didn't show every single fish that we tracked because it was kind of the same thing over and over again somewhat. But overall, the fish that you saw today, what are your thoughts about? I mean, some of those fish you said were way back in Birch Creek.
man, now all of a sudden they're out on the main lake.
Yeah, we had a few first-time outliers this time, fish that, those other weird weather patterns we had talked about in the fall and winter that didn't move them.
Yeah.
This seemingly finally shook a few of them up. That one we found earlier out there, all the way at the mouth of Birch Creek 3 weeks ago. It was all the way in the back of Birch Creek.
3 weeks.
I'm talking up against the bushes, a 2-foot mud flat.
We're talking 10 or 15 miles. I don't know, what is it? But probably 8 miles, something like that?
5 plus for sure. I mean,
5
we're looking
plus,
at 5 plus. And for whatever reason, when that fish had moved back there, 2 weeks before that, it was 2 miles out. So it had, in the course of a few weeks, it moved 2 miles back, then another 5 miles out.
Wow.
And the rest of the study, it had been stable. It had been in one of those homebody 100-yard range fish. And
then all of a sudden, that sucker decided, I'm going to go to the back of the creek and find me a big old fat girlfriend. And then all of a sudden,
It
that
got
snow
cold.
came, and he said, hold on. Hold on.
She's not back here.
We got to go further out than we've ever been. Let's go
And-
back to the main lake.
Yep, and so he covered a lot of water
He
really
sure
quick.
did.
So that was a
Wow.
shock and exciting to see when we found that one earlier. To see it way out there.
Then you got one that is literally, you guys told me, is on the same stump out there on the main lake, right by Shellbed at Birch Creek, at the mouth of Birch Creek, and he's on that same stump every time.
Yep, still is, and that's an easy one for us to find too. It gets pretty predictable. We're like, yeah, we can.
Well,
go
that
right
one
up
and
there
the
and he's there.
dock fish.
Yeah, and the dock fish. I mean, they're just
Those were the two standouts that were the most, like, to me, stuck out the most as far as not only is this fish like in this area, no, he's on
It's gonna
that
be on
stump.
that tree or that pylon on the dock. Yeah, and it's crazy. And like I said, we know they're still alive. They've got that mortality sensor for
Yes,
folks that might be saying,
yes.
well, that fish is dead. Well,
he's
luckily
not.
we know we've had a few die. Unfortunately, we know what that sounds like, and that
Yeah, you have one
triggers
get caught in a tournament die, and a couple of them die. I mean, that's just, guess what, folks? Every year there's fish on Lake Fork that die.
Certainly,
It
yeah.
happens.
So,
A certain percentage of our fish do die, but that was really cool. And I will tell you this: my guide customers are going to have a good chance to catch a tagged fish.
yeah. Oh,
Because now
think
that
so.
now that I know there's a stump under a dock and a stump at the mouth of Birch Creek where there's a fish on it all the time,
You're gonna, yeah. I want to know when you catch that fish.
I will promise you, I will pound the heck out of them
Yeah,
stumps.
you saw especially that dock fish. I've cast at him a lot now, and he's just.
But you can only use that one worm.
Yeah, that power
That's
worm.
that's the big deal.
yeah.
That's the disadvantage there.
Oh, certainly.
I'm gonna come in there and show him everything.
Yeah, I bet you
I'm
will.
gonna get a jerk bait up under there. We might skip a jig under there. I don't know what we're gonna do, but we're gonna show them everything. So, man, that's really cool. It's an interesting survey, and we did definitely see movement. But overall, it seemed like most of the fish were still kind of homebodies.
For the most part, we had those few crazy ones that moved way out, but the rest of them so far, nothing too crazy. I think overall, I've a few more of them have stayed put more today. They don't seem to be quite as nervous flighty from the boat. You've seen me fish for what, 4 of them now?
Yeah.
That's probably on the high end
Maybe
for what I
more
have
than
seen.
that,
Yeah. Definitely seen a few more stay put, which might just again be because of the cold.
Colder weather.
They don't
Yeah, maybe.
they don't want to be messed with. They want to just
Well,
hunker down.
It's like any other cold-blooded creature. The colder these water temp gets, the colder their everything slows down in their system. They try to move less. It seems like, every gators, frogs, all that stuff, when it gets real cold, they just kind of don't
slows
move.
down, just like us.
So, yeah. Just like last week in Texas.
Yes.
Nobody moved.
Yeah, but this feels great today for sure.
This is amazing. It's almost 80 degrees out here
Yeah.
today. You believe it? It was 0 degrees a week ago this morning.
Yeah,
A week ago this morning, it was 0 degrees, and today it's 80.
don't remind me.
It's, yeah.
I'm over that week.
It's been a hell of a week. There's no doubt about it. Well, this has been a heck of a day, Jake. Man, I really appreciate you letting me come out here and see this firsthand. I want to do it again if we can ever get the
Yeah,
schedules lined
certainly.
up. I want to do shocking surveys with you guys. I like bringing this stuff's real interesting to me, and I hope that all the viewers out there, I hope you guys are enjoying it and taking something from it. It's certainly, if you're a bass nerd, man, I got here today, and when we first started doing it, they're like, no, that fish, and they started pinging that fish. You're like, he's right there, he's right there, he's right there, and I'm like,
It's addicting.
it is.
It's a
I'm
whole different
nerding
game.
out big time.
Yeah, for sure. We're lucky to get to do this for sure, and glad to get you out here to film some of this too and get to see it. We like to spread our word of what we're doing every
Absolutely.
way possible, and this is a great way to do that.
Well, I've said it for a long time, man. It's you're never going to agree with every policy of not every customer agrees with how I go fishing every day, But there is no doubt, Texas Parks and Wildlife Fisheries Department is the shining light of the country. Every other state looks up to them, takes cues from them. You guys do a phenomenal job, and y'all are hands down the very best in the business. And we are now the mecca of trophy bass fishing in a big, big way. Yes, we have great natural resources, but in a major way, it's due to the management that y'all have done on our fisheries and the programs that y'all have instilled and everything that y'all have done to educate the public. And obviously, I make my living doing it. I can't thank you enough, man. You provided Texas bass fishermen a great sense of pride about the fishing we have here in the state by the way y'all have managed it. So thank you very much.
Oh, and thank you. And I love hearing words like that. It honestly makes us take more pride in our job as well. We really do. We care about the lakes we manage. I fish this lake every second I get. Not as much as I'd love to, but yeah, I love hearing that stuff. We care about these lakes tremendously.
Yep, I know it, brother. We appreciate it. Hey, also, we appreciate all you guys for watching, man. Thank y'all so very much. Hope you got something good out of this video. But either way, we appreciate you watching, and we will see you next time right here on your Lake Fork Guide.